Coming into this project, I had no idea that the things I would see in the produce section of a supermarket would make me feel the way I feel right now. Today I'll be reflecting on the supermarket tour guide aisle 2, the produce section. Going into the supermarket, I had written down a few questions that I thought I should answer or questions that I wanted to look for. Question 1. Were all the produce items local or were they imported? What I had actually found was that majority of the items were imported. Question 2. Look at the label on the foods. Where is everything from? It was interesting to find that a lot of the foods were imported from countries all around the world. This may seem like a joke, but it kind of made it seem like I was watching a Miss Universe pageant. There were produce items from Colombia, South Africa, Spain, Argentina, Dominican Republic, Peru, Chile, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Mexico, Thailand, Vietnam, you name it. There were fruits and vegetables from all over the world. And it kind of made me think, wow, I had never before stopped to actually look at where the food that I was eating was coming from. Going into the supermarket, I also wanted to see if there was a specific organic section, but at my Metro, what I had found was that there were a mix. So in some aisles, there were non-organic items, and other aisles, there were organic items. For example, when you walk into the Metro, at the next food stand, I guess, there was an array of non-organic apples. They were very well arranged. They looked like they used to be in pyramids, but I guess people had gotten to them. They were very shiny, very colorful, very plump. And then I kept walking and I noticed that behind those apples, on the side not facing the entrance, were apples that were considered lower price. And these apples didn't seem, very bright red. Some had green on them. Maybe these were the ones that were supposed to be less appealing, and they were being sold for cheaper, which I thought was crazy. And directly across the lower priced apples were the organic apples. These apples and pears were not shiny whatsoever. They looked a little bit duller, but they were labeled organic, and they also had other organic items above them. Going into the supermarket, I also wanted to evaluate the top 3 of the 12 most contaminated produce items in the US, that being peaches, apples, and bell peppers. And what I noticed was that the apples and the sweet bell peppers were very waxy, they were very bright in color, and they were very plump looking. To me, I don't understand how fruits, if they're supposed to be fresh, how can they really look like that? I think the peaches actually gave me a more real representation of what the fruits were supposed to look like, because I guess they weren't in season, or I'm not sure what was really going on with the peaches, but there was not an abundance of them. It was kind of hard for me to even notice them at first, and I did notice actually that they were kind of duller and they weren't uniform in shape whatsoever. Because of the case study towards the end of aisle 2, I did want to take a look at the bananas, and what I did find was that the Chiquita brand mentioned in the case study was actually the brand of bananas sold at this Metro. Alongside the Chiquita brand bananas, there were also Dole Plantation bananas. You couldn't really tell a difference. They were put side by side. The size and shape and color were actually the same. All of the bananas on the stand were not even yellow yet, so they weren't even ripe, but they were all on the stand and people were still picking them up. So I just wanted to take a look at that. Because of the mention of how much pesticides goes into actually creating these bananas, I just wanted to take a look at that. Another question I went in wondering was, do all the produce items look fresh? And what I found was that all the non-organic apples were very waxy. I guess they looked fresh, but in my mind, I knew that they weren't really fresh after reading this chapter. I also noticed that the bell peppers were very waxy. They looked very plump and fresh. The tomatoes were waxy. Even the avocados were very shiny, and the pomegranates were also shiny. Going back to the avocados, it really confused me about how shiny the avocados were, or some of them were, because I actually work at a Chipotle Mexican grill, and all of the food items we receive are supposed to be organic. So the avocados we receive to make the guacamole, they are very dull. They're not all uniform in shape. Some of them have sort of like tearing on the skin, I guess, or they don't look perfect basically. So it really confused me when I walked into the supermarket to see these perfectly shaped, really shiny avocados. Something else I wanted to look out for while I was at the supermarket was, why are things placed the way they were? My main finding was that all of the colorful fruits and vegetables were placed near the entrance, while all of the more dull brown produce items were at the back. For example, all of the fruits that were bright red, bright yellow, bright orange, vibrant greens were all placed towards the front. I also saw items that were vibrant purples, but all the squashes and potatoes and pumpkins were all towards the back, where they just looked very dull. Another interesting thing I found was that there were coconut chunks in a package that were labeled a product of Mississauga, Ontario. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a coconut tree in Mississauga, Ontario, so I don't know why it was labeled Mississauga, Ontario. There were no other countries listed on it. I'm not sure if it was some sort of artificially manufactured coconut. It just really confused me when I saw it. I just didn't understand that a coconut labeled product of Mississauga was allowed to be on the shelves. Going into my supermarket, I thought that this was just going to be a part of a project that I would have to do and never look at again. But after actually reflecting and researching and critically analyzing the way my supermarket was laid out, kind of makes me think that people don't even understand where their food is coming from. I wrote down a list of 18 other countries where food was coming from, and I only listed the 18 because after that I kind of got tired of writing down all these country names. Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, China, Colombia, South Africa, Nicaragua, Puerto Rico. It just amazed me that we don't really understand where all of our food is coming from.